this month we would start with our general meeting, and then people might also be confused with the switch of the meeting link. So hopefully some people found the new link for this month. Okay, but we wanted to start with any working group updates, any general updates, any discussion of recent events, or any relevant monthly topics, given that we're in June and um, we're at the start of the Loon chick season start or in middle of it for some folks. And then about halfway through or after we wrap up any discussion here, then we have a presentation from Mantrap Lake Loon Management Project, which is up in Minnesota, up in my neck of the woods. But to start, does anyone have anything that they would like to discuss in terms of updates or anything relevant going on in terms of Loon stewardship, Loon monitoring, community science? Relatively.
Well, in the Ely area, I would just say that out of my 15 lakes, we have 6 chicks already. So 6 of those lakes have chicks, and only one of them has a pair of 2 chicks. The rest of them are just singles. We had one chick die of starvation on Bailey's Lake in the middle of Virginia. And I have 7 more lakes that they could be on a nest yet. So I've seen some of them on the nest, and for some of them, I haven't seen the nest, but I'm only seeing one. So it's possible that they have a nest. One group, one lake, they are actually having their nest in the creek before they get to the lake part. So that's kind of interesting. And they've done that a few times before. We had some black fly problems that might have chased off some, but most of them seem to be heading the way of having chicks, we hope. And thank you, Natasha, for sending me the little update on the Pelican Lake death of an adult. I did not get the necropsy report from the diagnostic lab, so I'm fine. If you got the report, that's fine. That's more important. So anyway, thanks a lot. And yes, it was blunt force trauma, which most likely I would say is a boat hit. And they have a lot of big boats there. And it was found in the same area where uh, where 2 adults were seen with 2 brand new chicks. So the chances that it's one of those adults is probably pretty high. So that's all for the Ely area right now.
Okay, brief update from Western Maine. We have actually 7 lakes. We have about 10 pairs that are nesting. We've had 5 chicks, 3 hatches so far. We're a little bit late usually. And interestingly, we have one in the Sucker Brook, one of our brooks as well, and that's a repeat. They just like to be up in the brook. And we have another one that took 2 attempts to get nesting in deep in the marsh, built up huge nests, very impressive, despite the fact that we haven't had any kind of flooding this spring. So overall, we're doing very well, but it's very early. And last year we lost every single chick. So we're hoping.
Thank you both for sharing your updates. Does anyone else want to share any updates from their area in terms of nesting progress or anything in terms of monitoring status?
I do have one question. There's one adult banded female.
Yeah, I can.
Go ahead. So I was just telling about a single loon that's beaching itself every so often, but's been doing this for a week. And we're sort of at a loss what to do about it, whether to try and chase it, and it's pretty active, still diving, and so it's sort of in between status. Has probably an injured leg, but it's too active to be caught daytime anyway. So we're interested in opinions.
I'll weigh in. We had a sort of similar situation, and it was a loon that was repeatedly beaching, and it seemed to have an injured wing, and it was continually wing stretching, and the left wing didn't look like it was going out as much, and it was constantly pecking at the inside of that wing and not doing any other kind of preening. And so, the beaching continued. So we decided to rescue it, and we were able to easily capture it during the day. We had a fishing boat with a rescue team in it, and two people jumped out and we just walked up to shore, just scooped it up. So obviously something was wrong with it. So it went to rehab, and it was a very perplexing case. That something was wrong with the wing, but they didn't feel like it needed to be x-rayed, and they couldn't find any. We thought maybe there was going to be a hook or something in there, but there wasn't. And then the wing seemed to resolve, but it had a low white count. And I didn't get all the details from the vet. I don't know if it was treated with antibiotics, but eventually, she thought that its blood work was normal enough. The wing was resolved. It had kind of been waterproofing. I think that the waterproofing was terrible when it got in because it wasn't preening any place except that wing. So that might have been why it was beaching, because it was cold, because it wasn't waterproofed anymore. So anyway, we released it on the 23rd. It was like happy, happy, happy day. It, got in there, it dove, it wing stretched, it was just preening vigorously. It looked great. And then on the 27th, I got a message that it was found floating and dead next to a dock. And we have no idea why. So, again, we don't know, but it's actually at the University of Minnesota for necropsy. So hopefully we'll get an answer. But, did it have that injured wing? Because maybe it was in a territorial battle and it went and got into another fight. Or was there some infection that wasn't picked up? We don't know. But it was, I have video and all these high res photos of it before and after the capture, and videos of the release. And I was just sharing them with Dr. Arno at the University of Minnesota. And it was just breaking my heart just to look at it and seeing it looking so good. And then it did, it was floating right next to a dock where we had originally found it beached and where we had released it. And we did have a volunteer, go visit, a day or so after it was released, and did not see it in that area. So I don't know. I'm not advising you, but it's kind of like I do worry about, were we wrong to have brought it in? I don't know. It seemed like it needed to go in, but
And no x-ray at all?
she didn't x-ray. She didn't think it needed the x-ray. I wish she would have done the x-ray.
Me too.
I really do. There was no sign of neurological problems. They did do an HPAI test, but the result was delayed. But I talked to another vet, and he thought that if it had HPAI, there would have been signs of neurological problems. And it looked completely normal, and behavior wise. And it was eating well. It just is a mystery, but hopefully we'll have an answer. So I don't know. If it's got an injured leg, you're going to want that leg to heal before fall.
That's right.
I don't know what other people think. Anybody else want to weigh in for Heinrich?
My question was even whether an amputation would be better than leaving it alone. But I'm not sure how an amputated loon can deal with diving.
Well, it wouldn't be able to run across the water to
Right.
migrate. But like sometimes, like we had an injured loon that we did rescue with a very good success story, that she had injured legs from a territorial battle. And it, so it was one leg that was injured, and then she went to rehab and the infection or whatever it was treated, healed up. She's fine, migrated, came back, she's fine. And I know Linda Grenzer had one with a injured leg, I think, that they rehabbed and it migrated. Anybody remember that story?
Yeah.
Oh. But I was gonna suggest that maybe Sheila could bring like a summary of this incident or this case to the rescue rehab working group and get some other input, or we might have some other um advice and insight to give to Heinrich. And 'cause I don't know if Heinrich, you're part of that group as well, but if not, that will be following this meeting.
Yeah. You could, if you,
Yeah, I saw that. I was going to tune into that one too.
yeah, that would be a good one. Although I think Mark and Jay aren't going to be there. I don't know which rehabbers will be there, but you could also write it up and email them. Email Mark Procross.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Thanks for your input. That's very helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Sheila. Does anyone else have any updates around from their neck of the woods on their loons?
I can update you on Little Sebago Lake in southern Maine. We've had 6 nests so far. One is yet to hatch. One failed before any hatching. And 4 of them have hatched something. 2 hatched 2. One of those 2 that hatched 2 has lost both of theirs. The other one has 1 surviving. And the one that hatched just a couple of days ago, a single hatch on 1 nest, is still surviving. So we have 6 eggs hatched so far, and we've got 2 living out of that. Unfortunately, one of the ones that was deceased just yesterday, as a matter of fact, we had an observer on the lake that watched an adult kill the loon, and then seconds later, an eagle swoop in and pick up the floating cadaver. So it was a pretty gruesome event.
We had a similar case in our area, and we're in north central Minnesota. And yeah, Missy, who's on the call, your friends had seen that the intruder loons came in and it was likely infanticide. And that's just on the lake that's closest to us. And with the National Loon Center, we're doing a lot of our on water programs with bringing people out, so we're very familiar with the loons. We don't see everything, so we didn't see that incident. But now, since then, we've seen the pair that's lost that chick engaging in some social behavior with other loons, some of the circle dancing with three loons in the area. But overall, in our local region, I feel like our loons are doing better than last year, especially. I think we had a lot of chick loss, especially early on. And despite having, again, storms and inclement weather this year, I feel like we've had better chick hatching success at this point of the season than we had previously. So fingers crossed that it's a good year for loons for us in our area. I think last year I remember sharing in the group that a lot of folks also similarly had off years. But hopefully this is a good year for all.
We did have an incident yesterday. I'm on, sorry, my voice, I apologize. I'm on O'Brien and Goodrich in Cross Lake. We had 3 successful nesting pair. 4 chicks hatched out of the 6. 1 was unsuccessful. And we had an eagle loss. An eagle took a chick yesterday. So Out of the 2 lakes, we have 3 chicks left.
Sounds like people are seeing a lot of activity already. Some good, some bad at this
Yeah.
point of the year. We still got the rest of the season to go. So thanks for everyone for sharing. If anyone still wants to give any updates, you can jump in. But I'll just say on the working group side of things, so we had not done our May meeting, which would have been more of a subcommittee progress meeting. And for those that aren't familiar, we right now have the 3 subcommittees for loon monitoring, fish loon safe, and the platform committee. Loon monitoring will have more of an update next month with also anticipating a presentation specifically on using Survey 123 for loon monitoring from Luke Farah of the USGS, and the month after that, hopefully another update from the larger loon population research program. In terms of the fish loon safe committee, I have been not so successfully getting that moving forward, and we tried to meet last month, I think, but I'm going to hope I can get people a little bit later in the season when things ease up a little bit for most folks, that we can meet again and get that subcommittee moving forward. We have also had 1 meeting, I think, of the loon monitoring, and I believe that will be meeting again in August. But if you are interested in and haven't been a part of any of those subcommittees, there is an interest form, or you can reach out to myself for the fish loon safe, Kathy and Heinrich for the loon monitoring one, and Jay and Sheila for the nesting platform one. And I will put on the spot Sheila and Sherry if either of you might have any updates from the platform subcommittee to share before we go into the presentation from Steve, because that will be a pretty good segue into learning about the nesting platform project on Big Man Trap Lake.
Okay, I'll go ahead, but Sheila can jump in. She's really busy with a whole lot of stuff. Luke has been doing a great job on getting more of a scientific paper of exactly what to do with the loon nesting plant, why do it, why you should not do it, and all the details about it. It's much more like a scientific paper. So he's working on that, and he will present that at some point to this group. And then Sheila and I were gonna try to pull some pictures together, but Natasha, we need some technology help for that. But 3 of the absolute worst platforms you would ever imagine, which Sheila has plenty to show from that, and as well as the really good ones that seem to work, and all those ups and downs. So we don't have something to show to people right now. So I'm glad that Steve is here with his presentation. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll just add that Sherry and I did the sort of do's and don'ts list. It was more of a brainstorming list. And I think, kind of Luke might have kind of gone off from that onto a more scientific approach, which I think is really valuable. And I think Sherry and I are sort of charged with, Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong, taking our list and then making it more into like the document similar to the pamphlet, the trifold, Natasha, that the other committee made. So that's our goal, is to use the photos and some of the do's and don'ts to make some sort of document like you made with the trifold. And I think Luke also has loads of platform or photos, so we can draw on his too. So at some point when everyone's not so busy, to be honest, I think it's going to be fall, because like I'm involved in loon rescue and you guys are involved in all of your loon conservancy things right now. I just can't imagine getting to that until fall. How does that sound?
Yeah, Sheila, I think that hits it right on the head. So good. Thanks for that summary.
Thank you. And I'm really pleased with the progress we've made so far. We just don't have anything in a document to share yet.
Yeah.
So thank you.
understandable. And I like the fall. Sounds good. It's definitely the most hectic time for everyone at this time of year. So thank you for sharing the updates. I was trying to take notes and I have been not so successfully, I think, taking notes this whole meeting. So if anyone does have the agenda open and wants to edit what I've written to anything they've said, please feel free to do so. But from what you've said, do we need to put out a call for photos of examples of platforms, or do you feel like you have?
I think we've got them.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you both for sharing. I do think that is a good segue to now introduce Steve Manham from Big Man Trampoline, which is about an hour north of where the National Loon Center is in north central Minnesota. I've got to be on Big Man Tramp. It's a very special place, and I will leave most of that though for Steve to share. And if you have anything to share, to screen share, we can. Hopefully that should be able to work. But if needed, I can make sure that that setting is there. And you're still on mute though. Let's see if I can.
Can you unmute him?
Is that better?
Yes, yeah, you're unmuted. Yeah,
You can hear me.
yes.
Okay, you might want to mute me after a while. I'll start talking and it's going to be Thursday by the time I'm done. But I'm going to put glasses on just in case it makes me look more intelligent. I don't think it'll work. But anyway, when you were summarizing some of your details from this year, I stayed out of it because I figured I'd do it now. Our nesting season just finished. We had 45 eggs, which is the same as last year, and 25 of those hatched. We had 4 renests, 2 on natural nests and 2 on ANPs. And the second time around on the ANPs, both laid 2 eggs again. And of those 4 eggs, we've had 3 of those 4 hatch. 1 was abandoned. And on the natural nests, when they renested, predators found them again. So we didn't get anything off those nests at all. But so we had a total of, we put out 20 rafts, plus we have 1 log raft that a lake owner puts out every year, and it's always successful. But so 21 AMPs actually. Of those, 14 were used, and we had 6 natural nests. So that kind of, when we total everything up, we'll have percentages in that too. But we just did our June loon count. We wait and do that after nesting so we can count adults and chicks. And we had 60 adults on the lake and 23 chicks on that day. We've since added 2 more chicks to it. So 25 chicks. So we had 85 loons on the lake is what we saw just the other day. The most recent hatch was just June 25th, just a few days ago. And the first hatch of the year was May 29th. And that's, so we really stretched it out. But mink were our big issue this year. And I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at the video at all that I think Natasha sent out. That kind of explains on a very amateurish level kind of the man-trap project from its beginnings back in the late 1980s. So the AMPs have really, really increased our success rate. This year, the success rate of chicks being hatched from the 45 eggs, we were just sitting at 55 or 56%, which is lower than our typical. Last year, I actually was lower yet. Natasha mentioned that earlier, that last year people had problems. And I think we were just at 49% last year with our success rate. But, I'm certainly going to answer any questions that I can if anybody has any questions about our project or the use of ANPs or anything else that connects with it. The other day, we did have a tour of the lake. We had Tim Mitchell, who is the new DNR Loon Restoration Project coordinator. He came up and wanted to go for a boat ride. He had Luis with him, who is Kate Healy's replacement after she retired with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And he's from Puerto Rico, but he was up here too. So we took them around the lake so they could see what we're doing. As of this morning, all our rafts have been stored. They're off the lake except for one. We left that out because that was a renest, and even though both chicks hatched last week, they're still going on it with the adult. The adult's still sitting on the nesting ring with no eggs there, and the chicks were still on it this morning. So we just are going to leave it for a few more days before we remove it.
Steve,
Okay.
I have a question. This is Sheila. So I'm sorry I didn't look at the video yet, but I will. But why do you put out so many rafts? I mean, do you not have good natural nesting habitat, or what's the rationale?
The rationale is that over the years, as we've watched this thing since the late 1980s, we only put out a raft if there's a natural nest that has failed for at least probably 2 years. Then what we do is we introduce a raft in that territory just with the idea that maybe they'll use it, maybe they'll choose not to use it. And a lot of times they do. And so way back when I started this, when I retired from the classroom in 2007, I was able to devote more time in the spring and into June, and that with the Loon project up there. I don't live on the lake. For some reason, they still accept me as a volunteer. And that, so I was on the water before 6 o'clock this morning and yesterday. And so we spent a lot of time out there. But years ago, it was about half and half. We had 10 pairs using rafts, 10 on natural nests. And again, year by year, the predators tend to find the natural nest a lot more.
Yeah.
And so by putting the rafts out from shoreways, it does take care of most of the raccoons in that, but the mink have become the issue.
Okay.
We used a rangefinder this spring to find out with where our nests were sitting in relation to shoreline. And one of them that the mink nailed was 120 yards out from shore. But the rushes were there. It was on the outside of the rushes. And that's a long ways for a mink to swim to find that thing.
Yeah.
And one of the concerns we've always had, or actually 3 or 4 concerns, is that when we're using rafts, one of them is, are they going to be like a magnet for predators once they find them as a feeding station? Will they lock in on them in return? And this spring, with the one that we call Osprey Bay, that's the location, the mink came at night. That is not on that video that was sent out, but we do have cameras on all of our nests, the natural and the rafts. Wow. And we're using cellular cameras, so the pictures are sent right back to our phones. In past years, when we just used trail cameras, we had to visit the nests to change SD cards and maybe even batteries. But now with the cellular cameras, we've got solar panels on them too, so that does help with the life of the batteries, and we don't have to worry about an SD card. And if a still comes into our phone, there's an app where we can change that to a video. So if we're looking at a still from last night where a loon looks like it's flaring up on the nest or something happened, we can go to the video of 15 seconds or something and just see what the cause was of it. So we were able to watch this mink come in at night. He came right up on one of the rafts. So we all have ramps on our Type A rafts, which Type A means it's a bigger raft. They're all aluminum. And they have 2 pontoons. We put the Type A out where they might have a little bit more, where there might be some more wind or wave action and that. And the ramps, anyway, the mink came up on the ramp and the loon just sat there. And the mink circled the loon and started burrowing underneath the nesting loon to get to the eggs.
Oh, no.
And the loon still just stayed. And the loon raised up like, what's going on here? And the video shows that the mink is actually, okay, here's the next morning
Yeah.
that's showing up right now. That's the same mink that came back the next morning and took the second egg. And this time when the mink came onto the raft, the loon left quickly because the night before, as tolerant as that loon was, and at one point the loon raises up and you can see the mink with an egg in its mouth right underneath the loon. Finally, the loon went around behind the mink went around behind the loon and bit the loon, and then it took off. So then at nighttime, that mink was able to finish that first egg. And the next morning it came back and took the second one. So that kind of made us think, okay, they are locking in on these locations. But this was a renesting in the same location for this loon. And she just finished hatching both her eggs just a few days ago. And the mink never returned at all. So, I don't know what we can learn from that. But in that case, the mink didn't lock in on that as a feeding station.
Interesting.
On one of the natural nests that a mink hit, it came one night, took one egg, and it was a few days later, actually, that it came back and took the second. And we have that on video. And a few hours after the mink was there taking the second egg, then a raccoon showed up, but he was too late. There was nothing left. So it's really been interesting and helping our documentation by using these cellular cameras, because in the past, if we saw an egg was missing, it was just guesswork. Oh, maybe a raccoon got it, or what happened. But now we can really tell in most cases what is going on.
Yeah. Well, on our lake, we had a pair that was making a natural nest every year at the same kind of spot. And the property owner said foxes were getting the eggs. And so a few years ago, my friend who lives on the same side of the lake was helping his neighbor with an A&P. And so my friend had gotten all the nesting material on it, and it was just sitting out tethered fairly close to his dock. And that pair, again, had nest failure because of the predation. And they came swimming up the shore, swam around the platform, hopped on, laid 2 eggs by the evening. And so it was not a good location because it was just temporarily there. But now he's relocated it, so it's not right next to his dock. So last year and then this year, the pair has shifted to using that platform, and they're no longer using their old natural nesting site that they used for many years. So I do have another question. So I was just up on Caribou Lake, near Lutzen. Do you know that lake?
No, I haven't been on the lake, but I know the Lutzen area.
So it's really, the shoreline is very rocky. And there's some islands. I don't know how many islands, but definitely the cabin we were staying at was across from an island that has a pair that nests there. And they had nest failure while we were there. And so we went and looked at where they had been nesting. And it seems like there was just almost very little area where they could make a nest that wasn't rocky. And I think there's 3 pairs on that lake. I don't know how many acres it is. I'm not going to guess. Anyway, it's a pretty good sized lake, but not giant. I mean, I could easily paddle around it in an afternoon or something. But I'm just wondering if a lake like that could really benefit from A&Ps, because they have pairs, but their shorelines are just naturally rocky. It's not riprap, but it's just it's not good nesting. What do you think?
I'd leave that up to the whole committee, but I wouldn't be afraid of just putting out one A&P in one of those areas where you're seeing the loons and just try it as an experiment.
Yeah.
I don't think that would hurt anything.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
What we've got is the Lake Mantrap is only about 1,700 acres, and yet we have up to 24 nesting pair because of all the points and bays and the privately owned land. It's a lot of undeveloped shoreline. If you've paid attention to the newspaper in the last few years, and maybe you saw the big 3M article, 3M owns
Oh, yeah.
a conference center. They own about 7 miles of shoreline and about almost 700 acres of woods on Mantrap. The shoreline they have left undeveloped, except in their bay where their conference center is. Those buildings are there. They fly in, um, bigwigs from companies that buy a lot of 3M products, and they wine and dine them and show them a good time. And they, with whether it was the financial problems with some lawsuits or whatever, they decided to sell their property. And that was 2 years ago. And certainly people on the lake were very concerned if a developer would buy that, because it would really change things as far as the loon conservation, the water quality, everything.
Yeah.
About almost half of our loons nest in the waters, the undeveloped shoreline areas that was owned by 3M. So for the last 2 years, there has been a group of conservation agencies, the Minnesota Land Trust, the Northern Waters Land Trust were the two big ones that really worked on this, and they managed to purchase about 450 acres, I think, and about 4.5 miles of that undeveloped shoreline. So it is now in the hands of DNR for management, and it's open to the public as far as the trail systems that 3M had in there. And it will now be saved from development from this day on. So
great.
that was really a big environmental win for the lake and for Minnesota loons, I think.
Yeah.
So, but as far as back to your question quickly on the ANPs, I mean, I know that putting out 20 seems like it's overkill in that, but because of, if you look at a map of the lake and see the structure of the lake with all those bays, all the undeveloped shoreline, DNR owns a bunch of shoreline too, so do the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts don't have their camp on that lake. Their camp is on Bad Axe Lake, which is right next to it. But they own some of the Mantrap shoreline. And again, it's undeveloped. So when you're on that lake, there are areas that you can be in and not even see a cabin at all. And it kind of makes you think you're around Ely.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a big difference.
Yeah. That was the way Caribou was. I mean, there's a lot of homes on that lake, but I was just blown away. They're just completely tree covered with maybe the exception of 2. And then there's undeveloped shoreline too, but I'm just so impressed with their, conservation of their shorelines.
Steve, some people might not have gotten a chance yet to see the video, so I'll share the website page, screen share that for Big Mantrap Lake, and I'll put the link to this in the chat. But we have the link here to your Lake Association's loon nesting program, and you have on here really detailed information about the lake as well as about the loons and the type of platforms.
Yeah, those are the type A rafts that you just showed. In fact, keep going. Go down,
on the boat.
Natasha. You can
And
scroll down. So the one on the left is what we call a type A raft, and it has a removable canopy. When they are made, and we have had those made over the years at a tech school. It's a capstone project for advanced students, and the design has been changed many times over the years. But with that removable canopy, if loons have never used an artificial raft, we start them out without a canopy. You can see that in the picture there on the right. It's just a flat, that's a type B raft, very low profile. In more protected areas, the loons don't need a ramp. They can hop right up on. Chicks also can. And we put a nesting ring in the middle and all the natural vegetation. I've talked to some people that said, well, we use straw. And I say, oh, no. Use natural vegetation. Hay and straw and things like that evidently have a type of fungus or bacteria that can cause upper respiratory problems. So we use natural vegetation. We have a permit to do that. Right after the ice goes on the lake in the fall, you can see a picture right there. We're out there with shovels and cutting the vegetation, and then we store it over the winter under tarps and that. And in the spring, probably the week before the ice leaves the lake, we have a group of volunteers that converge on this shoreline where we store all the rafts and we prepare all the rafts. That's what a nesting ring looks like. It's just a garden hose with foam insulation around it. And we use zip ties to put that down. We stuff all the nesting material underneath it and around it. And surprisingly, loons are trained. Most of the time they sit right in the middle of that thing and lay their eggs. On a rare occasion, they actually lay their eggs outside of the nesting ring. But the nesting ring is there simply to protect them also from rolling off. You know what? It's just kind of an insurance policy for that. I said one of the other concerns we'd have, one was our predator is going to see these as feeding stations. Another concern we have is it going to attract humans? Curiosity. And we use the buoys, the nesting buoys out there to try to keep people away. But you can't keep everybody away. But the people on this lake love their loons so much that if anybody goes close to a nest, basically someone is seeing it. Even though there's a lot of undeveloped shoreline, people are very conscious of the loons. And it's an amazing lake for that. None of the funding for the Loon project comes from the Lake Association. When this was originally set up, the founders of the Loon project said no. Lake Association dues are meant to go to invasive species or other types of studies. Our Loon project is something that maybe a lot of people on the lake are going to like, but some people might not like it. So we're not going to take any of the money from the Loon or from the Lake Association. It all comes in as other donations and that. So we're sitting, in a place where we can purchase those rafts. When we started purchasing those aluminum rafts, it was costing us only for the materials. And back then, aluminum was pretty cheap. Now, if we were to purchase one of those rafts with a fabricator making it, it probably would be somewhere between $1,600 and $2,000. Every time a design was changed, we would sell off a few of our older rafts to another lake association if they were interested. And one of our founding fathers, in a sense, who just passed away a few years ago, was an art instructor at a university. And part of his contribution to the Loon project was his designs. He would do the drawings, the 3D models and everything else with the changes. And, that has really kept us going. But now we're not going to change the design anymore. And we have enough rafts where we're not going to add any more to it. We do actually have some empty territories on the lake and that, but we're not, we don't just put out a bunch of rafts thinking we're going to increase the number of loons. And when I give presentations, I tell people that too. If you don't have loons on the lake, or if you have just one pair of loons, don't put out 10 rafts, thinking you're going to get 10 pair of loons or something. So there is some rhyme and reason to what we do. And we try to learn all the time from it if we can, and from other people.
I'm surprised you have
also,
cell service.
Pardon?
I'm surprised you have cell service in that area. Is
Yeah,
that something to do with?
We have a couple cell towers right by the lake.
Okay, that's lucky.
And so that really helps us out a great deal. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to hear what kind of cameras you're using. If you could put that somewhere, maybe in the chat or so.
Okay. Well, right now, and I'm not doing a commercial for anybody, but we've gone with the Tacticam.
Yeah.
Is the company Tacticam Reveal.
Okay.
And when we purchase them, we're purchasing them with the solar collector on them, but we're also finding that in some areas where the solar is not hitting on the camera as much, next year we're going to be putting a lot of other solar panels, just attach them to the canopies themselves.
Right.
And if it's a natural nest, we're pounding a steel pipe in with a driver into the muck and that out in that area by the nest and hanging the camera on that. With the rafts, we have them mounted right on the raft. But it's just interesting with these loons too, what they accept us. I think they recognize the boat we're in all the time, maybe, but like this spring, is I was standing in the front of this John boat pounding these pipes in, the loon's just sitting on the nest watching me.
Yeah.
And I'm hanging a camera and trying to get the angle right so we can see it. And the friend I've got that lives on the lake, and he does all the hard work on the lake. His daughter lives about 130 miles south. And as I was getting this camera angle set, all of a sudden he gets a beep on his phone. It's his daughter saying the angle looks good, Dad. So I mean that's how instant these pictures are,
Right.
and that really has helped us a lot.
That's great. Thanks.
Steve, if you, I'll share some of the photos I took when I got to visit you guys the other year because I remember especially thought it was so neat that you had the system to have all these cameras on there and that helps so much with being able to know exactly what is happening, especially things that are like the mink predation that's occurring overnight. And um, while I'm sharing the photos, I know that there's several members of our working group who are members of lake associations or are already a part of or are forming loon, like the grassroots loon monitoring um, efforts. And uh, maybe you could speak to just how, in the beginning you were able to get that connection with the university that built these rafts and work to get these other additional donations to support these efforts and how you maintain this group of dedicated volunteers that continue to come out and do the platforms, which is several questions at once, if you don't mind. But I think that'll be helpful for some of the other members that are also, they're maybe not part of specific organizations, but are part of their local lakes loon monitoring efforts or their local lake association. And let's see if I can share these photos. I took a bunch.
Okay, I can start addressing those. I'm not going to remember all your questions
Yes,
probably,
sorry.
but we have a large group of the volunteers, but for most of the monitoring, documenting, photo work that we do, it's basically just a couple of us. Barry and I are out every other day or every third day, and now we have a few other gentlemen on the lake too that have really gotten into this, and they've been helping us a lot. But the group that helps us get the rafts ready in the spring, that's anywhere from 6 to 8 to 9 people. And then the day the ice goes out, that's when we start putting the rafts in place. And again, we have a crew there on that. We have a few on shore that will bring a raft down to the dock. And with the John boat or the modified John boat we use, it's a 16-footer, 16 and a half. We can fit 2 rafts on it at a time. So that and the anchors, we use a 2-anchor system. So they're not spinning around. We anchor the front and the back. And again, if you get a chance to see that video, you'll kind of see some of what I'm talking about. And it's just that many of the people that started the project have now passed away. The couple that really are responsible for starting it are in their 80s. And, well, I'm 75. Barry, the guy that I work with, he's 80. And what we're concerned with is the next generation. What's going to happen when we can't do it anymore? So we're really, really trying to stress the family type of involvement so that the parents, the grandparents, and moving on down to the next generation of these people that live on the lake, where they can get interested too. And by giving the presentations like we do to that lake association, as well as a lot of other lake associations, and Sherry even had us up in Ely in April. But that helps a lot. And now putting these pictures on, we've got a Man Trap or Friends of Man Trap, I think it's a Facebook page. And we've got one of the guys on the lake that's kind of taking care of the website now. And he's putting pictures and video on this website so people on the lake can see what's going on. And that has gotten them so excited. I mean, a few years ago, the motor on our Loon boat just clonked out. We needed a new motor. It was mentioned at the one of the meetings. It was no problem. We had the funding from donations to buy a new motor. And Lyle Lasky, who passed away a few years ago, who was our designer of all the rafts, the different models, in about 2014, when he decided to get a new fishing boat, he just donated that John boat that he had to the Loon project. So that's the boat we still use each year. And yeah, I think we've got, oh, let's see. Well, like I said, with the paying for the rafts, when Lyle had the first raft made, it was made out of irrigation tubing from some fabricator over in Fargo. Lyle was then working at Morehead State University, and he took it into the swimming pool at the university and sat on it to see how much weight it would be able to carry and that. And then after that, he had a few of them made by another fabricator, I think at Bemidji, and somehow, and I'm not sure how, he stumbled onto this connection with the St. Cloud Tech School with a few of the instructors there, and they just jumped on the project. They thought it would be a great project. And so that's kind of where it started. And he'd bring the design down if we were changing it. And with these removable canopies, you know, how they fit on and how we latch them on, how we can flip them up so it makes it easier to put the nesting material in. We even have a channel on there where we could slide in a rectangular rod with our camera mounts on it. So we can hook the camera right to the raft. We're finding that we're going to do less of that because when the camera's right on the raft, every time that raft moves with a little wave action, it's taking pictures. So we're going through thousands of pictures all the time, looking at them and either deleting or saving them or whatever. So that becomes, you know, an issue. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, but we love doing it. So mainly it's, like I said, a handful that are doing a lot of the day-by-day work. But the rest of the crew, if we need them, like this morning for removing 3 of the 4 rafts that were left on the lake, just a call was made, and right away we had a few people on shore and a few people in the boat, and it just works out slick that way. So we just are lucky to have people that really enjoy this. What else?
I find it interesting that your season is almost 2 weeks or 3 weeks earlier than ours, and you're further north than us, and so it's interesting. I mean, we have maybe more of a black fly problem, so our loons will hardly ever survive a nesting period in early May or end of May because of the black flies. But
Yeah, we have the black flies too.
Yeah.
And they hit right at the beginning of nesting.
Yeah.
And you know, if it's a failed nest and a renest, then there are no black flies.
Right.
But this year we did not have any abandonment of nests because of black flies. In the past we have. But our first egg was laid on May 3rd. Yeah, May 3rd was our first eggs. And then within a week, we had about 14 eggs, and then it just moved up from that. So,
so well, 3 weeks later then. That's pretty impressive.
Okay, yeah, that is interesting that it is that different. And I know, Sherry, when I was up at Ely, I mean, you still had ice on the lakes.
Well, thank you for that video. It's really helpful, and I sent it to some newcomers, and they were quite impressed. And it's very well done.
Well, forgive the amateur stuff, but I mean, educational wise, I think it at least has some value that way. Yeah. You know, it's not going to win any awards, and that's not what it was meant for. So. Yeah.
I'm always surprised how loons go from platform to regular nests and not mind the constant wave action when they sit on that nest. I mean, especially if you have these cameras behind them. We have them behind the camera, behind the loon looking out. And this constant movement must be so different from sitting on a stationary nest, and they don't seem to mind at all.
No, they don't.
It's very, very surprising.
So Steve,
Yes.
since you have the college tech guys, students making the platforms for you as capstone project, then what's your cost?
Well, in the past, and now we're not having any more made because we've got,
Yeah.
everything we need. But at the beginning, it was about $200. And now it would be, because of the price of aluminum, I think it probably would be 700 or 800. I haven't even checked the last few years.
So the DNR, has their basic A&P design that
the PVC model.
Yeah. And so we have, gosh, I think we only have two of them on our lake, but and I don't know that they are going to keep supporting that financially. I mean, we're a member lake association for the Minnesota Loon Restoration Project, but I was wondering, we have Brainerd at Central Lakes Community College near us, and they have tech programs. I'm wondering if we could try the same thing, only have them make the basic A&Ps. I don't know.
Yeah, just, the type B rafts are much lighter weight, easier to handle, and they've got a hoop type of canopy on them.
Yeah.
Which really is nice because the loons can enter and exit either direction. And it's just so much nicer. But I see nothing wrong with the PVC ones.
Yeah.
When Tim was here the other day and he was talking about the DNR restoration project and using the PVC, I said, I've helped 4-H kids make the PVC, the Sandra Gullum design, and Eagle Scouts are using that for their project, for their Eagle project. But as far as those strings up there for the Eagle Guard, I was showing them the canopy, the hoop canopy we have in the Type B raft. That would work really nicely on the PVC rafts too.
I do not like those strings.
No.
I have one of the loon liaisons for the DNR project. I'm one, and so is my friend on another lake. And a year ago, the strings or rope came loose, and it was wrapped around the nesting loon's leg. Yeah. And she, in her platform, was in front of her property, but she's more of a weekender. It was just luck that she was there and saw that. And then Tim wasn't on board at the time, but I think it was Jaden and a couple of the other guys came up right away, but it was, an hour and a half drive or something from Brainerd for them to get there. And the loon actually was very calm and let them, handle it and take the rope off. And then they repaired it. And they said, they kind of changed the design a little bit. But those ropes really worry me. I like your design much better.
Yeah, and I think that, in ours, that hoop canopy was made with aluminum too, but that could be made with PVC. And when we did the 4-H project with 4-H youth, we used all recycled PVC. We had a Green Corps worker that helped us, and she was gathering all these materials as they would come in from plumbers or whatever else. And so we used all that to cut the cost down. And that worked just really well in that. And I think when Carol Henderson first started writing the project for the restoration and the BP oil spill, he asked me to get a quote from a fabricator for our design, the aluminum rafts. He was thinking of using something like that with the lake associations that were a part of the restoration project. But when he retired and things started changing, the PVC design was decided on. And again, much probably lighter weight, much cheaper. And you can involve kids making them. And that's what I like. It's the teacher in me, but getting that next generation involved.
Exactly. Well, something to think about. We actually own one of the ones like yours, only it doesn't have the removable part. And I inherited it from a neighbor, but it's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And I just think it would probably be a lot easier for us to have the other one. We have to drag it quite a ways, and it's hard to store.
Yeah, that's the big part. People like them, but and we've thought of that too for years to come as some of our older volunteers continue to kind of disappear from the scene. Should we go to something like an adopt-a-raft where families on the lake take the responsibility? If there is a nesting territory within sight of their cabin or something, would they be responsible enough for putting that out in the spring, taking it in once the nesting is done? We don't leave them out, beyond the nesting. I mean, maybe a few days or something, but it's public water too. We don't want them in the way of fishermen. We have reflectors on them. We have identification numbers on them, and they've been identified or registered with the sheriff's office because they are out in public waters.
Speaking of that, I have one more question, and sorry you guys for asking so many questions, but did you have to get permission from the sheriff to put out your platform caution signs, like, stay away, loons nesting? Do you have like a floating one? Did you have to get permission for that?
I believe we probably did. I mean, if we got permission for the rafts themselves, this probably went along with it. And yeah, so we use the buoys, the big plastic buoys that bounce up and down. And we don't have registration numbers on those. That's something I can check on. But we've never had DNR question that with us, so evidently it's okay.
So we have the loon caution buoys in our channels warning people because the chick rearing areas are in the channels and outside the channels.
Yep.
But there's some nesting caution buoys that you can get that aren't that substantial. They're kind of floating, like pyramid shaped ones, which you can just put in temporarily during the nesting season, which I was hoping we could get because the sheriff's department doesn't necessarily like us putting in more buoys.
Yeah, those little ones, like you mentioned, we tried one of those, but wind just tips it over.
Oh,
and it's upside down sometimes. So we've
okay,
gone
then
away from
that's
that.
good to know. Yeah, okay, thanks for that.
Yep.
Yeah, thank
So
you
Natasha,
so
what
much,
else
Steve.
didn't I answer?
I think you answered a lot of the questions that we had, and there are a lot of good questions here. And just because we're now going over our time and we have the next working group meeting, I'll ask, is it okay if I share your email with people if they want to?
Yep, sure
I'll
can.
put that in. Thank you. I'll put that in the chat.
And if anybody
Here.
does get a chance to look at the video, and if you have any questions following that, please email them to me.
Yeah, we'll share out the notes. I took a lot of notes. I tried to as you were sharing some information. I know a lot of that's also in the video, and so hopefully folks will watch that as well. But and I'll put your email in the notes as well. So if anyone is
And
interested,
eventually
they
the book
can.
may be out, probably more as an ebook. I don't know that I'll ever find a publisher, but the rough draft is 320 pages long. So that covers the the whole project.
Well,
Thank
all right.
you.
It's thorough. Maybe you want to join the Loon platform subcommittee because they might have
Yeah,
some input on it.
I think
We
we'd
could
love
do-
that.
Yeah, it's definitely
Well,
it's a unique situation. I think with just the involvement in how this Lake Association has been maintaining this project for so long. Yeah, thank you again. Really appreciate you being here to share with folks, and I really appreciate the folks that joined today. I believe I recorded this, so we'll get this on the working group playlist, and then everyone now should have Steve's contact information if they'd like to reach out in the future. And I think that should be it. Well, thank you,
thank you.
everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.